Hey, it's me, TB, and today I'm bringing to you a video that I kind of asked if you wanted to see in my community tab because I just got that randomly. Cool. But yeah, I put it to a poll and people did say that they wanted to see a video about this. So this is a video about the 2021 releases that I saw like no one talk about. So here to kind of like shed light on them because I did not like videos as books were coming out. So this is going to be like a part one because there's like a part two because there were just so many. So fair warning for that. But yeah, this is part one. And they're going to be 10 books in each video, so they're like 20 books total. It probably would be more if I did these like seasonally, but because I'm doing these at like the end of the year, you know, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. So here we are. And I have read some of these, but I have not read all of them because, you know, stuff has happened. I haven't been able to get to everything I wanted to get to, but blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so first up is River of Dreams by Anita Heiss. The author is a Wiradjuri woman from Australia. This is a historical fiction novel following, and also this is focused on Aboriginal Australians. I want to say that they're also Wiradjuri, but I'm not sure, so I'm not gonna say that. But our main character, like the main focus, is on Aboriginal Australians and how they're treated. So fair warning for that. Basically, there's a flood, and our main character loses, I think, people that own her, and eventually, if I remember right, one of the people that own her, are like the sons of the guy that owned her because she is enslaved. One of these sons kind of like takes her along with her because the wife and her are like, you know, friends, obviously in quotes, because like, can you really be friends with someone that is like enslaving you? Not really. But anyway, they kind of move and they take her along with her. So she's separated from her people and her family unit, which really affects her. So they move to this new place and she's very like despondent and heartbroken. And she does kind of like she's able to get some comfort from the fact that there are other Aboriginal people near her. So she does find comfort in them. But eventually she does meet a stockman who becomes her love interest, and they do fall in love and they have children. But I will say that this book does avoid putting her in a lot of like dangerous situations. So like it is sad, but it isn't as sad as you'd expect when going into it. There is a scene where she's almost raped, but she does not get raped. Because I'm pretty sure she does not. There's a really like sad scene, so I will say this ahead of time. So this is kind of a spoiler, but I do think it's important to like tell you ahead of time. So if you want to miss this, skip ahead to the next book because it's all I'll tell you anyway. Towards the end, one of her children does die in a river. Her child does get swept away and is like gone. So it is like a very like sad moment. I'm going to tell you that it happens towards the end. So it's like a very intense moment because you don't see it coming at all. So yeah, that is River of Dreams. I give it 4 stars, I think, which probably would be 5 stars if I reread it physically because I did listen to this via audiobook. It's on Scribd for whatever reason, even though it released in Australia only. So go there if you want it. Next is The Conductors of Nicole Glover. This was supposed to release back in 2020, but got pushed back into March 2021. The sequel just released recently, so you can pick up both this and the sequel, and you're good. So this is following our main character, Hetty, and her husband Benji. They were originally married as a form of like convenience, so people wouldn't have to ask about like who they are and why they're together if they aren't married. It kind of gives them like an alibi because they were conductors on the Underground Railroad, except now because it is post-Civil War, we are into Reconstruction, I think, and they are in the community that I'm pretty sure is like, this whole book has a mostly black cast, so there's that, and both our main characters are black too. So if you want a book that has 2 black characters in love, here you go. And they also have the use of magic in this world. I'm sure white people and black people have different forms of magic, and for our main characters, it is a form of like stars and like astrological signs, I think. And they basically now, since there is no railroad anymore, they solve crimes that the white authorities wouldn't address. Eventually, one of their friends ends up being murdered, and they are sent to investigate. And in the bodies they find having a very strange mark carved into the skin. They're like, "What the fuck is this?" They have no idea. So they had to investigate, and shit gets pretty wild. And of course, it is a marriage of convenience, but eventually there's like some semblance of romance. I won't say it gets like all spicy and stuff because it isn't, but it was very cute, and I really did like it. So there you go. Sure, I give this 5 stars when I read it. So yeah, I do highly recommend this because it was a great time. And it is pretty long too, so if you want like a longer mystery. I felt that I kept the pace really well, but there you go. Next up is Ghost Finders by Ida McComber. But it's here because we read another one of this author's books for my Queer Audio Book Club, which is a book club I host where we read queer literature. We read his book, Jesus and John. So this is another one of the books that came out this year. So we're following an occult detective called Henry Coxton, and he is investigating gaslit mysteries in the damp cobblestone streets of Edwardian London. And alongside him, we have a telekinetic with a mysterious past, a monster of dubious origins, and he has to work against the clock to solve the agency's most terrifying case yet, and one that threatens to destroy everything they hold dear. It's obviously gonna be like spooky, magical. It sounds like a great time. So there you go. And I will say that I did also like his other book that I read. I'm pretty sure that was a 4 stars for me. So obviously I do kind of recommend this author and their writing style. So there you go. So next is Walking Into Worlds by Wab Canoe. And in this one, we are following an Indigenous teen girl who's caught between two worlds, both real and virtual. And this is a YA fantasy. Also, everything I've talked about before this has been adult, I'm pretty sure. So there you go. It's perfect for fans of Ready Player One and the Otherworld series, which I have no idea what that is, but there you go. So our character Bugs is really involved into this online game because in reality, she's very shy and reserved and dealing with a lot of issues on her reservation. But online, she's very dominant and very confident. And there's also Fang, who is a teen boy who is being sent from China to live with his aunt on the reservation because his online activity kind of showed that he's like looking into a lot of stuff that has to do with extremist activity. And both Bugs and Fang kind of meet in both the real world and the virtual one, and they kind of like form a friendship both online and off. And they're both kind of dealing with separate issues of, you know, family issues as well as community trauma. And so eventually a betrayal happens and things kind of fall apart, and Bugs has to find a way to kind of piece things back together. And Bugs has to kind of like, I guess, deal with all the aspects of her life, you know, both online and off, both mainstream and traditional, as well as, you know, the real and virtual, and how do you find balance and all those things. So there you go. I'm sure this was released fairly recently as well. So there you go. So next is The Gatekeeper Staff by Antoine Bondelet. And this one we are following TJ Young, who has been surrounded by magic his entire life, but has never used it until this book. So there you go. So this is a YA fantasy, and our main character is 14, and he grew up in the secret community of magical people in modern day Los Angeles. And his sister was kind of like called upon to use her powers to kind of like lead the people, but she dies mysteriously in Nigeria. He wants to kind of investigate this, so he enrolls himself into a magical school for people like him that are like magical but not extremely powerful. So he enrolls in a school that is set in New Orleans, and eventually he crosses paths the powerful spirits of the Orishas. So this is a YA fantasy dealing with the West African Orishas, where he will encounter unlikely allies, tough as Gator Hide instructors, and the ancient secrets of the Orishas. So there you go. I'm sure this is also self-published, because I'm pretty sure this author does a lot of like self-published fantasy stuff. So there you go. So next is The Prophets by Robert Jones Jr. And spoiler alert, because I don't know what will come out first. This is a pick for my 2020 year Queer All Year book club. So there you go, spoiler. So from what it sounds like, this sounds like it's going to be a multi-PV story following our two characters, Isaiah and Samuel, I think. And they are enslaved people during the 1830s, and you know, they kind of fall in love, and their love is not not unknown on where they live. But eventually one of the people there kind of starts preaching the gospel, and the community starts to turn on each other. Eventually their love life becomes kind of like a very big like issue. So as things fall apart and become, you know, tense, I guess it's kind of following like what's gonna happen between them, I guess. So yeah, the author has also said that there are rape scenes in this, both like non-detailed and very detailed. So we're going to expecting some sexual assault, I guess. And as a whole, because this does take place in the 1830s, following enslaved people, it's about, you know, general like heavy content, because it's not going to be like a happy, cheerful story, you know. And because this is following, you know, that setting, I don't have no idea if there's going to be like a happy ending or not. So I guess going to expecting that it might go either very happy or very sad. It could go either way. So next is the Stag's Blood Prince by Gideon E. Wood. And this is an adult queer fantasy following our main character Tell, who's given powerful magic by the Stag's Blood. So Tell is the crown prince of his kingdom of Fae, I guess. He ends up negotiating a deal with the kingdom they're kind of like at war at. And so when his father dies, his brother kind of like outmaneuvers him for the throne. And because of what he believes in, Tell isn't able to kind of like attack him or kill him in revenge. So kind of like forced to like deal with that. Eventually his brother decides to kind of like round up the undesirables, which is people that have Stag's blood in them. So of course Tell becomes like, what the fuck should I do about this? Besides that, his brother's reign also kind of going very dark, you know. So that's one of those things where like, how bad could it get? So of course when you start targeting people like him, it becomes like, well, fuck, I'm kind of shut out of luck now. So he has to decide whether or not to kind of like flee or try and fight against his brother. And of course, you know, he kind of forms his own little group and they decide, you know, what to do next. I'm pretty sure this was self-published, and the sequel either came out already, or it's coming out very soon. So there you go. So next is The Removed by Brandon Hobson, and this is a novel steeped in Cherokee myths and history, and deals with a fractured family reckoning with the tragic death of their son. So it has been 15 years since their son has died. He was killed in a police shooting, and the family has kind of been stuck in grief ever since. And eventually there is an annual bonfire coming up. It's going to be important for the family. It is signifying both the Cherokee national holiday as well as the day that Ray died, their son. So the mother kind of tries to kind of like bring the family back together so they can like stop grieving and move on. But as the event comes closer, the family finds themselves seeing the like physical world and the spiritual world blend together. One of the things that happens is that they end up taking in a foster child who ends up keeping the father's Alzheimer's symptoms away through some magical means. They don't know. And one of the family members, Edgar, attempts suicide and finds himself stuck in a very strange place called the Darkening Land. And Spook deals heavily with trauma and obviously like suicide attempts and death. Let's go into expecting like heavy topics and themes. So there you go. So next is The Library of the Dead by T.L. Huchu. So when a child goes missing in Edinburgh's darkest streets, young Ropa investigates. So she dropped out of school to become a ghost stalker. Now she's able to kind of like talk to the dead and carry messages to the living. Eventually children start going missing, and someone is bewitching children, and they kind of like end up becoming husks, you know, devoid of like life and joy. She ends up discovering an occult library, and she has a taste for hidden magic. So of course she needs like following this shit out and figuring out what the fuck happened. So there you go. I'm sure this is like an adult fantasy novel, so sounds great to me. So next is Dead Girls by Nikisa Afia. This is like a historical mystery. I'm sure it's like book one in like a series, following our main character, Louise Lloyd, who is investigating crimes in 1920s Harlem. So it sounds fucking great already, you know? So it is 1926, and young black girls like Louise Lloyd are ending up dead. Eventually she ends up being arrested, and she's kind of given the ultimatum by the police to either help them investigate, find out what's going on, or to let the judge kind of like send her away for good. She is forced to tackle her own fears and the prejudices of New York society if she wants to catch a killer and save her own life in the process, because she has a past of being kidnapped and being put in danger herself. And she's kind of been trying to ignore the past trauma that has happened to her by just working in her cafe and working in a speakeasy, trying to kind of like ignore that trauma, but obviously it's going to come back to bite her in the ass, because it always does. So yeah, it sounds like I guess like an entertaining historical mystery at the very least. I was going to say fun, but obviously, you know, with people dying, probably not fun per se, but engaging, I guess, is the better way to say it. I actually did get an arc of this, but have not read it yet, so, you know, oops. But I will get to that soon. So yeah, that's part one of the books you missed in 2021. There's like a variety of things here, from like fantasy to mysteries, to like historical fiction, to, you know, YA fantasy. So there's like a lot here. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, subscribe, like, share, all of that. Hopefully I will see you next week.